I recently built my first application with the Ash framework, and I wanted to give you some of my thoughts on what it was like and what I think of it. Um, if if you're interested in the thing I built, I'll give you a I don't know 60-second overview here. But on the homepage, spellsightwords.com, before you sign in, there will be a 6-minute demo that actually explains the app. That if you know a kid that needs to practice spelling words, this might be the app for them. So I'm going to sign in here.
A, as in do you want a cookie?
Okay, so it's telling me to spell a word.
R, as in you are a great friend. As in as we
So
walk to the park.
R, I got right the first shot, so that's a known word. But A, I spelled wrong earlier today, so it's not a known word yet.
As in as we walk.
So yeah,
B, as in to be or not to be.
each time I get a word right, especially if that's the first time I've ever seen that word, I've started with a clean database here, I'm on local, then it's considered a known word. But if I've gotten a word wrong, yesterday or today, it's considered a word that I'm still practicing. Or specifically, if the spaced interval of how we're doing the spaced repetition is less than 24 hours, it's considered to still be practicing. Yeah, so there's a fair bit of logic there on which words to show today. There's another place that has some logic, is that the goal per day is 25 words. If you're starting your first day, you'll get 25 brand new words that day. And I'm wording them here as cards because of flashcards. But after that, when you come back tomorrow, and you have 5 words due or 10 words due, it'll make you practice the 10 words you have due, but you will only get 15 new words to try and stick to that 25 word goal. And if you take a couple of days off and you come back and you have 30 words due, it'll ask you to do you'll get 30 words. You need to do all 30 today, but you will get no new words. So it's the spaced repetition, and in how many words to pull for today is where there's probably the most logic. So yeah, let's take a quick look at the code, and then I'll give you my thoughts on what I think of Ash and where, when you should consider it. Let's look at the file tree here. Okay, so Ash, Red Web would be your presentation code, your UI code. That Ash does not live there. Ash is not Phoenix. People have asked, can you use it with Phoenix? Yes, absolutely, because Ash lives inside of your business logic code here in Red. Okay, the app name is Red. I like short app names because I don't like to type long ones. And the Wilson reading system that my daughter is working through calls the words to practice red words. So yeah, there's for what that's worth. So there are these 2 different APIs that Ash calls them. There's an accounts API that has some API config here, not much. And there is a user. And this is this user, these resources are key to knowing how to use Ash. So a user has attributes, and it has relationships. It has many cards. It has aggregates. You can count the cards reviewed today. You can count the cards succeeded today. Count the cards goal today. Yeah, a bunch of things that can be counted on the user. These aggregates, which are have been very useful for making these stats pages. Let's see, is there a no? localhost 4000 words. Yeah, the first time you come, you'll get here and you'll have to load these words. These words are at app load time. I read them from CSVs into persistent term, and yeah, all these kind of things are yeah, these I might calculate just on the fly, but still a lot of things. Counting counting users' progress is useful. Oh yeah, if you finish your goal for the day,
Both. As
if
in
you
both
finish your
of
goal
us
for
are
the day, it
going.
shows how much you know from which book. Um, anyways, authentication API strategy. So as you can see here, I'm not expecting you to understand the code and read it. What I'm trying to show is just that it's very dense. There is very little code to write for the functionality of a user signing in, because Ash comes with Ash authentication, and I used an authentication strategy that it comes with, register with Auth0. And yeah, so we can sign in with Google. I guess I could show that. Spellsitewords.com in incognito. If I click sign in, we came to spellsitewords.us.auth0.com. And so here we could sign up to create a username and password, or we could continue with Google. If we click continue with Google, we sign in. And I just used my face as a logo because I don't have a logo for the app yet. But yeah, that's the user. Let's see, and then let me look at the card first, and then under practice resource, there's an API for practice. It's also very simplistic. There is a card, and the card does a few more things. Okay, it has these actions. You can read cards for a user, create, next, look ahead, oldest, get by. Next is fairly complex. What should be the next card right now? Do I have any cards that are due in before right now? Then get the oldest one of those, or the one that's due the furthest into the past. Have I practiced less than 25 cards today? Less than my goal? If I have not, get me the oldest created untried card. And if I've been through that, then lastly, look ahead just 20 minutes into the future to make sure there's not a card that I just got right for the second time or third time, and we only scheduled it 10 minutes into the future. And we should just try it again today before we say that our practice is done. So next is complex. It's got a lot of logic here, if statements and things, but it's all, what I like about it is that it's all, my daughter wanted to tell me something and then probably saw I'm recording. I'll go see what she needs in a minute. It's all encapsulated here so that from your UI code, let's collapse Red. If we go to Red Web, Live, Practice Live, let's see, red.accounts.load. Yeah, from your UI code, you get a nice interface of, I'm going to call red.accounts.load, and I'm going to take the Soccer Designs current user, and I'm going to load cards review today, because I needed to display that here. Show me the cards review today. That's how we get this number. So you've got your business logic code living done by Ash, and your presentation code have a nice clean interface. So the coupling between them is pretty thin because you're just calling into it. As you know, if you were designing a Phoenix context, this is how you should design it. Anyways, one thing that I've heard, a reservation I had, and something I've seen other people ask also about the Ash framework is, well, what if there's something I need to do that Ash cannot do? And the answer is that there are escape hatches everywhere where you can just write your own code. Let me show you an example. Red practice resources card. There's an action called try. Here it is. Some of these other actions might be, okay, this one's simple. It's just this filter and a get by. But next is a complex action with, some conditional logic in it. So right here, we've got an anonymous function that has conditional logic in it for the next action. So the Ash resource still provides a nice clean interface to the rest of your application, but it has your own custom Elixir code in it. And if you want to go the next level up from that, that's when you try a card. When I type in an attempted spelling and I press enter, either I spelled it wrong or I spelled it right. If you spelled it right, we want to space it out, a certain amount of time into the future. If you spelled it wrong, we want to, set the tried at to right now and set the, it needs to be due right now again. So here we can say manual, and we pass a module, red practice try. And try is just an Elixir module with I guess I'd call it a callback or something. A function that will be called by Ash, by your resource, with all the conditional logic. There's a lot of logic here in how things will be spaced, and a lot of my time was spent, with either in the very beginning with my daughter complaining that, well, I just spelled this right. Why is it asking me this again? And after I nerded out on spaced repetition, spending time on figuring out, okay, what is optimal for the human brain to have content prompted to you that you need to recall, and what is the optimal interval to review it at. And so I wrote tests for all of this, even though it is, it's a toy app. But this, I definitely wrote tests for. I wanted to make sure that I understand it right, because a lot of my complex business logic is here, and it's all pure Elixir. But my app is a spaced repetition app. And so that's kind of what I like about Ash, is that it lets me focus on the things that are interesting. And all the mundane things of creating a context and creating accessors, functions, and writing functions and everything, creating migrations, all of that is handled by Ash in a very elegant way. Do I think you should use Ash? Well, yeah, that depends. I would suggest you first learn how to use Elixir and Phoenix and LiveView. I can't see a reason to jump straight into Ash unless you are super motivated by using the highest level possible language to describe your app while still remaining in code. If that's the thing that's going to keep you motivated to learn how to code or to learn Elixir or Phoenix, then maybe I could see that. But Ash at this point in history is hard enough to learn, and I'm not trying to say that as this is a bad thing about Ash. It's just that Ash does a lot of things, and you need to learn how to use it to do all of those lot of things. So, yeah, it's not easy. Probably one of the biggest downsides has been error messages, where normally, because Elixir and Phoenix are more mature, if you get an error message, it usually describes to you exactly what you need to fix. That if it's some configuration in Phoenix, it'll tell you, even a code snippet sometimes, add this to your config to fix this problem. Where Ash is there with some of its error messages, and I know the team is working towards improving those, but it's not yet there for all of them. Sometimes you'll get an error you don't quite understand, or sometimes I am calling some Ash code, calling an action on a resource with the wrong arguments or in the wrong way, and I can tell it's wrong. The error message makes it clear that it's wrong, but I'm not sure what I should do to fix that. The documentation is not quite there with enough examples yet, but I know the Ash team is working on that as well. And so they have been very focused on getting it to work in production for the people that are already using it. And we'll soon pick up more and more usability, developer experience type features. So is it ready for a side project? Yes. I am happy that I used it on this side project. One thing that was a killer feature in my experience was I started with a completely different, fairly different data model. Instead of having the concept of a card representing a flashcard, I just wanted to represent an attempt. That every time you spell a word, we write down the time at which you spelled it, which word you attempted to spell, and what your attempt was. And from that, we can derive, did you get it right or wrong? From that, we can derive, from that and all the other attempts, we can derive when's the next time you should try and spell it. And also, if a parent or a tutor wanted to see analytics about which words a child is struggling with, or if we want to build in some kind of a streak, kind of thinking about an event-based system and the benefits we could get from that is how I started. And then I realized, it's more important just that I get this thing out, that my daughter can start practicing these words. And I realized a lot of the complexity here is in spaced repetition, and getting that right. That's what's going to make this thing really valuable. And a lot of the spaced repetition theory out there that I was not an expert in, but when I started this, I was learning it. All of it centers around the concept of a flashcard, of a card, and all the example algorithms for spaced repetition are dealing with a single card at a time and setting the next interval based on the previous interval. And, based on how many times you've gotten it right. So when I did that switch, when I switched from an event-based data structure or data model to a more of a normal CRUD, just that each of these is a flashcard with a word and a prompt. To that data model, I had to make very little changes because of Ash. So this is where Ash really shone, in that the form that you're filling in when you make an attempt to spell a word is generated by Ash, and is generated for a specific action on a specific resource. And so when I made the new card resource and I gave it a try action, all I had to do in the UI was change the resource name and action name, and boom, it just worked. And so the benefit I see is that because Ash lets you write very little code, when you change your mind and you want to change some things, there might be very little code to change. So the cost of change is low, which is incredibly valuable for, I don't know, side projects, businesses, everything. Starting with Ash today for side projects, definitely try it out. Starting with Ash today as a business, it would be a gamble, as any technology would be, and I would argue you might get higher risk. It would be higher risk, higher reward with Ash, because if it works out, you could potentially have very little software maintenance cost going forward, and very low cost of change, very rapid development after your team ramps up on how to build with Ash. As of this recording in 2022, I would still be slightly worried that if something happened to Zach Daniel, or maybe what if something happened to Zach Daniel and Josh Price? Both of them were on a plane and it crashed. Would the Ash framework survive? That would be probably the main concern. But if it did not, I still think it guides you towards architecting your app well, and your business logic would be providing a nice clean interface to your presentation code, and rewriting some of that business logic in pure Elixir might be fairly natural if you already know how it's supposed to behave. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Ash. I like it. I like it enough that I want to keep using it. I would prefer not to build things without it. My main frustration points has been around feedback when I'm doing something wrong. But I'm confident they're going to improve that. And it's so good. The experience and where this is going is so good that I am confident in saying that either Ash or something like it will exist into the future, 10, 20, 30, I don't know. As long as humans are writing code to create apps, which I believe is going to be probably forever, something like Ash will exist. Either Ash or something like Ash, just because the idea is right. That having a higher level declarative API to define the basics of what every app has. It has these resources. They have attributes. This is how they relate to each other. Is just very, very useful. It also has an Ash admin. It just gave me an admin interface for free, so I can go in and go edit a phrase. Those are all my thoughts for now. I hope it helps you decide if Ash might do right for your next project.